Election date has been finally announced. And of course, we all have opinions about behavioral patterns of the public, entitlement of political parties, and most importantly, forecasts about their victory. Despite all these discussions, we all can agree upon the fact that many of the contestants don't even possess bare minimum qualifications to be a part of state legislation. For example, one must be well educated. Candidates must have properly paid their taxes. The contestant should have a clean public image, possibly without any formal cases. But to us Indians, these sound too good to be true and sometimes even idealistic. Some people might even think that such standards could only be enforced in countries like Switzerland or perhaps Japan. But sorry to disappoint you folks. These are not expectations but were actual old school rules. Not just decades or few centuries old, but a whopping 1200 years old. Sounds unbelievable, right? What's even more fascinating is that it happened in India, precisely in ancient Tamil Nadu under the regime of Pandyas and Cholas. As you all know, India has always been viewed as a land of mythology and culture. Though it is true, these prejudices totally downplay how great their actual history is. Sadly, it is no more an outsider issue, but rather a perception which even our own citizens behold. With the dates of few state elections being announced, as a person from Tamil Nadu, I would like to put forth before you an ancient system whose model is surprisingly similar to the current democratic system. Firstly, we will be looking into an unsung stone inscription from the reign of Pandyas at a small village called Manur, 15 kilometers from Tirunelveli. In that village, there is a circular inscription on one of the pillars at the hall of Ambalavanand Swami temple. This inscription clearly explains how members were selected in the Grama Sabha of village Manilinallur, a Brahmadeya village. It means those villages which were donated specifically to Brahmins. The following were minimum qualifications required to become a member of this council. Only one representative from each original shareholder family of the village could serve. The candidate was supposed to be well versed in sacred learning, especially Mantra Brahmana. An individual has to demonstrate good conduct and adherence to Dharma. Such individuals were permanent members of the council, while there were others who acquired the rights through purchase, gift, or dowry. These people were also able to participate in the discussions, but their influence was limited to the extent of property which they owned. As such, their voting strength was also proportional. It can be up to one quarter, half, or three-quarter share depending on their holdings. Interestingly, those who purchased the rights from original families had an additional condition to pass an examination in Vedas called Parishishta. Also, anyone who was attempting to obstruct all these arrangements were fined with 5 kasib, ensuring that this structure was respected. From these rules, we can see that early settlers of the village wanted to maintain administrative stability and continuity within themselves. Now, the second inscription which we are going to see is the often quoted famous inscription from the walls of Thirumal temple at Uttiramerur, Kanchipuram district. It was established during the reign of Cholas. But this inscription provides us a detailed understanding of the qualifications for the candidates. The candidates must be from the ages between 35 to 70. He must be educated and should also be an income earner as well as taxpayer to the government. One must own at least a quarter fence plot of land upon which his own house is built. He must be capable of taking up projects and completing them. Above all of these, one must be virtuous enough and should not have held any government jobs or been a member of committees in the past 3 years. Of course, knowing that humans are capable of turning against one's own morals as well as rules, there have been conditions for those who were deemed to be ineligible as well. People who completed their public service but have not submitted their accounts for auditing, those who have been involved in crimes which are serious, such as misappropriation of property, being convicted of theft, and those who have accepted bribes. Of course, those who have committed the above crimes but later on chose to become good people were also ineligible. Additionally, there is an interesting twist. Maternal and paternal relatives of those who have committed the above said crimes were also not eligible to participate in the selection. Okay, we now have the set rules. Then, how were the candidates selected? Sealed ballot boxes were received in the main assembly hall at the village square. Mandatory participation was required for all the old and young men. Name of the contestants, except those who were disqualified, were etched on palm leaves and were collected into a pot and brought to the assembly. Now, the youngest child from the village picks the ballot and gives it to the eldest priest. Name on the selected leaf was read aloud and attested by all other members of the council. The selected candidate thus was appointed for approximately a tenure of 360 days. And of course, if a member was found guilty, the individual was removed at once and the committee that functioned to supervise justice, assisted by an arbitrator, would conduct another selection through the above said process. Well, looking at all these inscriptions, one can clearly understand that despite century year old differences between these inscriptions across different dynasties of ancient Tamil Nadu, they provide us with a clear evidence that there was a systematic local body elected by the residents to ensure smooth running of administration. Like the Pandyas, the Choras who came after them also had very clearly structured electoral rules. Though the selection of council members were more of a lottery system rather than an actual election, we can't ignore the fact that it was one step forward to what we call in modern times a democracy. While monarchy rule was the norm of these dynasties, they found space to accommodate elements of democracy into the ruling system. The inscription from Manur, a Brahmadaya village, shows us a Vedic focused conditions for administrators, while Uttiramerur inscription was for the village where multiple classes of population resided. This shows us that participation of all individual houses from every individual classes were ensured. Well, this pot ballot system can be quoted as a predecessor to our current democracy. From the lot system, it evolved into a modern electronic system where people above the age of 18 can vote and elect their leaders irrespective of their financial status and gender differences. With such a spectacular growth, why do we need to know about these ancient practices? Well, time and again, it is important to revisit our history to understand from where we actually grew. History is not just confined with Magna Carta. We had Athens and Uttaramerur, places which cradled democracies in their own ways at various time periods much before the world started talking about democracy. We all can take pride in pioneering democracy at its finest form during these elections. Now, we as public can make difference and add value to it when we think and choose to vote wisely. So, do vote and do make a difference. Jai Hind.